Where's that gone? Where's that gone? Where's that gone? Where's that gone? And starting. Can I get a... All I need is people. Okay, I've got an email telling me I've gone live. Ah, there we go. Right, can I hear anything? Okay. Yes, I can. Brilliant. Okay. Right, we're back. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, where's my mouse gone? There's okay. Noise. Right, we're back. Can I get this a touch closer? Right, yes. Right, back for some more Handmaid's Tale. You know, I've had a few comments on last. I say a few. I had 2 comments on the Facebook post I did of the last one. Now I know that there are many people who click these links to watch these videos. I also know that there is nobody that actually watches the whole video. So I know they click the links because I see the analytics and I see people comment on it, and they say things that have something to do with whatever I have said. But I also see that the total watch time is like 4 minutes or something stupid like that. So of all the people that do it, between them, they managed to get through very little. I think it might have been actually like 14 minutes or something. But still, being that these are all over an hour long, they definitely are not watching the whole thing, which, as ever, is a good thing. Now, one person said that this is better than playing Rock Band. I may disagree. But as a self-improvement type of thing, unless I do become a professional drummer or something, then yeah, no, Rock Band is a lot of fun, and everybody should play it. It should be more of a thing than it is. But the other thing was a friend of mine who is a primary school teacher telling me that I had to work on words like petit point and shoe and other things. You'll remember shoe because at one point, for some reason, I said show, as if I was Ed Sullivan. We'll pretend it was just a Simpsons reference. Why not? And it was really big. But yeah, but she was asking me, why do I do this? And the reason I do this, which obviously I explained in the first video, but apparently people aren't watching the first video because they want to hear bits of this out of order. And the reason I do this is because, one, I've not read a book in years. Yeah, so that's annoying. I used to read a lot of books, and now I just don't. So that's annoying, and I would like to be reading more books. So I need to get onto that. And 2, because I would like to be a voiceover artist. I mean, I dabble at the moment, but a big part of being, because it's all very well and good that I be able to do voiceover artistry at home in a studio where I have as much time and I have the luxury of getting things wrong and fixing things and so on and so forth. But if I want to be a professional, I need to be able to just turn up somewhere, cold read it, and it be decent. It be a bed that all we need is a couple of pickups, and boom, we're done. Out the door. You know, everyone gets their money's worth. Whereas if I'm just fumbling about all the time, then that doesn't help. So that's why you need practice. You know, people go to acting school, they spend years and years just learning to act. There isn't a version of that for voice artists, and actually, it's kind of a good thing that there isn't a version of that because it's a voice artist. Because I wouldn't be able to afford it, and it would be a barrier to entry for me, and I just wouldn't do it. You know, so that'd be annoying, and I like the idea of doing it, so I would like to do it. So yeah, we'll carry on from there. I'm not saying I want to do audiobooks, but if you've got a better way of learning to read lots of text, then, you know, please do let me know. Um, that a very lazy person like me is going to be able to handle. So anyway, where were we? Chapter 20. Oh, actually, I should mention another thing. Another part of the reason why a lot of this is terrible. Yes, I am not necessarily good at doing this in the first place, but second, I do tend to do this very tired. It tends to be at sort of 2 in the morning after I've been at work for a day and been doing various things. Work isn't hard for me. I do not, I'm not the hard-working type. But still, 2 in the morning, I'm liable to be tired. So that's what I do. I think of it like, like Saiyan style weight training type situation. You train up in the worst possible condition, and that way, when you turn up for a job and you are well hydrated and you are well rested and you have done some preparation, you're going to be able to destroy it because you've been doing this. Chapter 20. The central staircase is wider than ours, with a curved banister on either side. From above I can hear the chanting of the women who are already there. We go up the stairs, single file, being careful not to step on the trailing hems of each other's dresses. To the left, the double doors to the dining room are folded back, and inside I can see the long table, covered with a white cloth and spread with a buffet. Ham, cheese, oranges, they have oranges, and fresh baked breads and cakes. As for us, we'll get milk and sandwiches on a tray later. But they have a coffee urn and bottles of wine, for why shouldn't the wives... But they have a coffee urn and bottles of wine, for why shouldn't the wives get a little drunk on such a triumphant day? First they'll wait for the results, then they'll pig out. They're gathered in the sitting room on the other side of the stairway now, cheering on this commander's wife, the wife of Warren. A small, thin woman, she lies on the floor in a white cotton nightgown, her greying hair spreading like mildew over the rug. They massage her tiny belly, just as if she's really about to give birth herself. The commander, of course, is nowhere in sight. He's gone wherever men go on such occasions, some hideout. Probably he's figuring out when his promotion is likely to be announced, if all goes well. He's sure to get one now. Of Warren is in the master bedroom, a good name for it, where this commander and his wife nightly bed down. She's inflated, but reduced. Well, no. She's sitting on their king-size bed, propped with pillows. Janine, inflated but reduced, shorn of her former name. Shorn of her former name. She's wearing a white cotton shift, which is hiked up over her thighs. Her long broom-coloured hair is pulled back and tied behind her head to keep it out of the way. Her eyes are squeezed closed, and this way I can almost like her. Fucking hell. Her eyes are squeezed closed, and this way I can almost like her. After all, she's one of us. What did she ever want but to lead her life as agreeably as possible? What else did any of us want? It's the possible that's the catch. She's not doing badly under the circumstances. 2 women I don't know stand on either side of her, gripping her hands, or she theirs. A third lifts the nightgown, pours baby oil onto her mound of stomach, rubs downwards. At her feet stands Aunt Elizabeth, in her khaki dress with the military breast pockets. She was the one who taught Guy Ned. All I can see of her is the side of her head, her profile, but I know it's her, that jutting nose and handsome chin, severe. At her side stands the birthing stool, with its double seat, the back one raised like a throne behind the other. They won't put Janine on it before it's time. The blankets stand ready. The small tub for bathing. The bowl of ice for Janine to suck. The rest of the women sit cross-legged on the rug. There's a crowd of them. Everyone in this district is supposed to be here. There must be 25, 30. Not every commander has a handmaid. Some of their wives have children. From each, says the slogan, according to her ability, to each according to his needs. We recited that 3 times after dessert. It was from the Bible, or so they said. St. Paul again, in Acts. You are a transitional generation, said Aunt Lydia. It is the hardest for you. We know the sacrifices you are being expected to make. It is hard when men revile you. For the ones who come after you, it will be easier. They will accept their duties with willing hearts. She did not say, because they will have no memories of any other way. She said, because they won't want things they can't have. Good old St. Paul, arch misogynist. Right, that's not written in here. That was me as an aside by me. Once a week we had movies, after lunch and before our nap. We sat on the floor of the domestic science room, on our little grey mats, and waited while Aunt Helena and Aunt Lydia struggled with the projection equipment. If we were lucky, they wouldn't get the film threaded upside. If we were lucky, they wouldn't get the film threaded upside down. What it reminded me of was geography classes at my own high school thousands of years before, where they showed movies of the rest of the world. Women in long skirts or cheap printed cotton dresses, carrying bundles of sticks or baskets or plastic buckets of water from some river or other, with babies slung on them in shawls or net slings, looking squint-eyed or afraid out of the screen at us, knowing something was being done to them by a machine with one glass eye, but not knowing what. Those movies were comforting and faintly boring. They made me feel sleepy. Even when men came onto the screen, with naked muscles hacking away at hard dirt with primitive hoes and shovels, hauling rocks. I preferred movies with dancing in them, singing, ceremonial masks, carved artifacts for making music, feathers, brass buttons, conch shells, drums. I liked watching these people when they were happy, not when they were miserable, starving, emaciated, straining themselves to death over some simple thing, the digging of a well, the irrigation of land, problems the civilized nations had long ago solved. I thought someone should just give them the technology and let them get on with it. Aunt Lydia didn't show these kinds of movies. Sometimes the movie she showed would be an old porno film from the 70s or 80s. Women kneeling, sucking penises or guns, women tied up or chained with dog collars around their necks, women hanging from trees or upside down, naked with their legs held apart, women being raped, beaten up, killed. Once we had to watch a woman being slowly cut into pieces, her fingers and breasts snipped off with garden shears, her stomach slit open, her intestines pulled out. Consider the alternatives, said Aunt Lydia. You see what things used to be like. That was what they thought of women then. Her voice trembled with indignation. Moira said later that it wasn't real. It was done with models, but it was hard to tell. Sometimes, though, the movie would be what Aunt Lydia called an unwoman documentary. Imagine, said Aunt Lydia, wasting their time like that when they should have been doing something useful. Back then, the unwomen were always wasting time. They were encouraged to do it. The government gave them money to do that very thing. Mind you, some of their ideas were sound enough, she went on, with a smug authority in her voice of one who is in a position to judge. We would have to condone some of their ideas, even today. Only some, mind you, she said coyly, raising her index finger, waggling it at us. But they were godless, and that can make all the difference, don't you agree? I sat on my mat, hands folded, and Aunt Lydia steps to the side, away from the screen, and the lights go out, and I wonder whether I can, in the dark, lean far over to the right without being seen, and whisper to the woman next to me. What will I whisper? I will say, have you seen Moira? Because nobody has. She wasn't at breakfast. But the room, although dim, isn't dark enough, so I switch my mind into the holding pattern that passes for attention. They don't play the soundtrack on movies like these, though they do on the porno films. They want us to hear the screams and grunts and shrieks of what is supposed to be either extreme pain or extreme pleasure or both at once, but they don't want us to hear what the unwomen are saying. First come the title and some names, blacked out on the film with a crayon so we can't read them, and then I see my mother, my young mother, younger than I remember her, as young as she must have been once before I was born. She's wearing the kind of outfit Aunt Lydia told us was typical of unwomen in those days. Overall jeans with a green and mauve plaid shirt underneath and sneakers on her feet. The sort of thing Moira once wore. The sort of thing I can remember wearing long ago myself. Her hair is tucked into a mauve kerchief tied behind her head. Is it a kerchief or a kerchief? Kerchief. I keep saying that I'm going to look up these words. I keep not doing that. So, there we go. Her face is very young, very serious, even pretty. I've forgotten my mother was once as pretty and as earnest as that. She's in a group of other women, dressed in the same fashion. She's holding a stick. No, it's part of a banner, the handle. The camera pans up, and we see the writing in paint on what must have been a bedsheet. Take back the night. This hasn't been blacked out, even though we aren't supposed to be reading. The women around me breathe in. There's a stirring in the room, like wind over grass. Is this an oversight? Have we gotten away with something? Or is this a thing we're intended to see, to remind us of the old days of no safety? Behind the sign, there are other signs, and the camera notices them briefly. Freedom to choose. Every baby a wanted baby. Recapture our bodies. Do you believe a woman's place is on the kitchen table? Under the last sign, there's a line drawing of a woman's body lying on a table, blood dripping out of it. Now my mother is moving forward. She's smiling, laughing. They all move forward, and now they're raising their fists in the air. The camera moves to the sky, where hundreds of balloons rise, trailing their strings. The camera moves to the sky, where hundreds of balloons rise, trailing their skins. Their strings. Red balloons with a circle painted on them, a circle with a stem like the stem of an apple. The stem is a cross. Back on the earth, my mother is part of the crowd now, and I can't see her anymore. I had you when I was 37, my mother said. It was a risk. You could have been deformed or something. You were a wanted child, all right. And did I get shit from some quarters? My oldest buddy, Tricia Foreman, accused me of being pronatalist, the bitch. Jealousy, I put that down to. Some of the others were okay, though. But when I was 6 months pregnant, a lot of them started sending me these articles about how the birth defect rate went zooming up after 35. Just what I needed. And stuff about how hard it was to be a single parent. Fuck that shit, I told them. I've started this and I'm going to finish it. At the hospital, they wrote down aged primipara on the chart. I caught them in the act. That's what they call you when it's your first baby over 30. Over 30, for God's sake. Garbage, I told them. Biologically, I'm 22. I could run rings around you any day. I could have triplets and walk out of here while you were still trying to get up off the bed. When she said that, she'd jut out her chin. I remember her like that. Her chin jutted out, a drink in front of her on the kitchen table. Not young and earnest and pretty the way she was in the movie, but wiry, spunky. The kind of old woman who won't let anyone butt in front of her at the supermarket in a supermarket line. She liked to come over to my house and have a drink while Luke and I were fixing dinner, and tell us what was wrong with her life, which always turned into what was wrong with ours. Her hair was grey by that time, of course. She wouldn't dye it. Why pretend, she'd say. Anyway, what do I need it for? I don't want a man around. What use are they except for 10 seconds worth of half-babies? A man is just a woman's strategy for making other women. Not that your father wasn't a nice guy and all, but he wasn't up to fatherhood. Not that I expected it of him. Just do the job, then you can bugger off, I said. I make a decent salary. I can afford daycare. So he went to the coast and sent Christmas cards. He had beautiful blue eyes, though. But there's something missing in them, even the nice ones. It's like they're permanently absent-minded. They can't quite remember who they are. They look at the sky too much. They lose touch with their feet. They aren't a patch on a woman. They aren't a patch on a woman, except they're better at fixing cars than playing football. Just what we need for the improvement of the human race, right? That was the way she talked, even in front of Luke. He didn't mind. He teased her by pretending to be macho. He'd tell her women were incapable of abstract thought, and she'd have another drink and grin at him. Chauvinist pig, she'd say. Isn't she quaint, Luke would say to me. My mother would look sly, furtive almost. I'm entitled, she'd say. I'm old enough. I've paid my dues. It's time for me to be quaint. You're still wet behind the ears, Piglet, I should have said. As for you, she'd say to me, you're just a backlash. Flash in the pan. History will absolve me. But she wouldn't say things like that until after the third drink. You young people don't appreciate things, she'd say. You don't know what we had to go through just to get you here. Just to get you where you are. Look at him, slicing up the carrots. Don't you know how many women's lives, how many women's bodies the tanks had to roll over just to get that far? Cooking's my hobby, Luke would say. I enjoy it. Hobby schmobby, my mother would say. You don't have to make excuses to me. Once upon a time you wouldn't have been allowed to have such a hobby. They would have called you queer. Now, mother, I would say, let's not get into arguments about nothing. Nothing, she'd say bitterly. You call it nothing. You don't understand, do you? You don't understand at all what I'm talking about. Sometimes she would cry. I was so lonely, she'd say. You have no idea how lonely I was. And I had friends. I was a lucky one, but I was lonely anyway. I admired my mother in some ways, although things between us were never easy. She expected too much from me, I felt. She expected me to vindicate her life for her and the choices she'd made. I didn't want to live my life on her terms. I didn't want to be the model offspring, the incarnation of her ideas. We used to fight about that. I am not your justification for existence, I said to her once. I want her back. I want everything back, the way it was. But there is no point to it, this wanting. I have forgotten to put a timer on. Yeah. Right, let's try this the sensible way. How long have I been streaming for? Oh, it tells me on OBS. Okay, I've been going for 20 minutes. Let's assume that 5 minutes of that was preamble. In which case, hey Siri, 45-minute timer. That didn't work. Oh, I feel silly now. Hey Siri, 45-minute timer. There we go. Lovely stuff. And we hydrate. We always stay hydrated. I say that I've been hydrating poorly today. I've started to get back on the Huel, and that means I need to hydrate even more because that stuff dries you out. But today I had pizza and meat and rice. We had family round, so food appeared and needed to be eaten. So it's all right though because I'm back on the Huel. So that means I will lose weight, not be fat like I've been. And obviously it doesn't help me lying in this position and being all like blah, blah. Actually, no, I'm all right today. But the other day, I was tubby. Chapter 21. It's hot in here and too noisy. The women's voices rise around me. A soft chant that is still too loud for me after the days and days of silence. In the corner of the room there's a blood-stained sheet, bundled and tossed there from when the waters broke. I hadn't noticed it before. The room smells too. The air is close. They should open a window. The smell is of our own flesh, an organic smell, sweat and a tinge of iron from the blood on the sheet, and another smell, more animal, that's coming, it must be, from Janine. A smell of dens, of inhabited caves, the smell of the plaid blanket on the bed when the cat gave birth on it, once, before she was spayed. Smell of matrix. Breathe, breathe, we chant, as we have been taught. Hold, hold, expel, expel, expel. We chant to the count of 5. 5 in, hold for 5, out for 5. Janine, her eyes closed, tries to slow her breathing. Aunt Elizabeth feels for the contractions. Now Janine is restless. She wants to walk. The two women help her off the bed, support her on either side while she paces. A contraction hits her. She doubles over. One of the women kneels and rubs her back. We're all good at this. We've had lessons. I recognise Offglen, my shopping partner, sitting two away from me. The soft chanting envelops us like a membrane. A Martha arrives with a tray, a jug of fruit juice, the kind you make from powder, grape it looks like, and a stack of paper cups. She sets it on the rug in front of the chanting women. Offglen, not missing a beat, pours, and the paper cups pass down the line. It's good to know the future has grape drink. I receive a cup, lean to the side to pass it, and the woman next to me says, low in my ear, "Are you looking for anyone?" "Moira," I say, just as low. "Dark hair, freckles." "No," the woman says. I don't know this woman. She wasn't at the centre with me, though I've seen her shopping. "But I'll watch for you." "Are you?" I say. "Alma," she says. "What's your real name?" I want to tell her there was an Alma with me at the centre. I want to tell her my name, but Aunt Elizabeth raises her head, staring around the room. She must have heard a break in the chant, so there's no more time. Sometimes you can find things out on birthdays, but there would be no point in asking about Luke. He wouldn't be where any of these women would be likely to see him. The chanting goes on. It begins to catch me. It's hard work, but you're supposed to concentrate. Identify with your body, said Aunt Elizabeth. Already I can feel slight pains in my belly, and my breasts are heavy. Janine screams, a weak scream, partway between a scream and a groan. She's going into transition, says Aunt Elizabeth. One of the helpers wipes Janine's forehead with a damp cloth. Janine is sweating now. Her hair is escaping in wisps from her elastic bands. Bits of it stick to her forehead and neck. Her flesh is damp, saturated, lustrous. "Pant, pant, pant," we chant. "I want to go outside," says Janine. "I want to go for a walk. I feel fine. I have to go to the can." We all know that she's in transition. She doesn't know what she's doing. Which of these statements is true? Probably the last one. Aunt Elizabeth signals. Two women stand beside the portable. Two women stand beside the portable toilet. Janine is lowered gently onto it. There's another smell, added to the others in the room. Janine groans again, her head bent over, so all we can see is her hair. Crouching like that, she's like a doll, an old one that's been pillaged and discarded in some corner, akimbo. Janine is up again and walking. I want to sit down, she says. How long have we been here? Minutes or hours? I'm sweating now. My dress under my arms is drenched. I taste salt on my upper lip. The forced pains clench at me. The others feel it too. I can tell by the way they sway. Janine is sucking on an ice cube. Then, after that, inches away or miles. No, she screams. Oh, no, no, oh, no, no, no. It's her second baby. She had another child, once. I know that from the centre, when she used to cry about it at night, like the rest of us, only more noisily. So she ought to be able to remember this, what it's like, what's coming. But who can remember pain once it's over? All that remains of it is a shadow, not in the mind even, in the flesh. Pain marks you, but too deep to see, out of sight, out of mind. Someone has spiked the grape juice. Someone has pinched a bottle from downstairs. It won't be the first time at such a gathering, but they'll turn a blind eye. We too need our orgies. Dim the lights, says Aunt Elizabeth. Tell her it's time. Someone stands, moves to the wall. The light in the room fades to the twilight. Our voices dwindle to a chorus of creaks, of husky whispers, like grasshoppers in a field at night. Two leave the room. Two others lead Janine to the birthing stool, where she sits on the lower of the two seats. She's calmer now. Air sucks evenly into her lungs. We lean forward, tensed. The muscles in our backs and bellies hurt from the strain. It's coming. It's coming like a bugle, a call to arms, like a wall falling. We can feel it like a heavy stone moving down, pulled down inside us. We think we will burst. We grip each other's hands. We are no longer single. The commander's wife hurries in her ridiculous white cotton nightgown, her spindly legs sticking out beneath it. Two of the wives in their blue dresses and veils hold her by the arms, as if she needs it. She has a tight little smile on her face, like a hostess at a party she'd rather not be giving. She must know what we think of her. She scrambles onto the birthing stool, sits on the seat behind and above Janine, so that Janine is framed by her. Her skinny legs come down on either side, like the arms of an eccentric chair. Oddly enough, she's wearing white cotton socks and bedroom slippers, blue ones made of fuzzy material, like toilet seat covers. But we pay no attention to the wife. We hardly even see her. Our eyes are on Janine. In the dim light, in her white gown, she glows like a mooning cloud. She's grunting now, with the effort. Push, 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 we whisper. Relax, pant, push, push, push. We're with her. We're at the same as her. We're drunk. Aunt Elizabeth kneels with an outspread towel to catch the baby. Here's the crowning, the glory, the head, purple and smeared with the yoghurt. Another push and it slithers out, slick with fluid and blood, into our waiting. Oh, praise. We hold our breath as Aunt Elizabeth inspects it. A girl, poor thing. But so far so good. At least there's nothing wrong with it that can be seen. Hands, feet, eyes. We silently count. Everything is in place. Aunt Elizabeth, holding the baby, looks up at us and smiles. We smile too. We are one smile. Tears run down our cheeks. We are so happy. Our happiness is part memory. What I remember is Luke with me in the hospital, standing beside my head, holding my hand in the green gown and white mask they gave him. Oh, he said, oh Jesus, breath coming out in wonder. That night he couldn't go to sleep at all, he said. He was so high. Aunt Elizabeth is gently washing the baby off. It isn't crying much. It stops, as quietly as possible so as not to startle it. We rise, crowd around Janine, squeezing her, patting her. She's crying too. The two wives in blue help the third wife, the wife of the household, down from the birthing stool and over to the bed, where they lay her down and tuck her in. The baby, washed now and quiet, is placed ceremoniously in her arms. The wives from downstairs are crowding in now, pushing among us, pushing us aside. They talk too loud. Some of them are still carrying their plates, their coffee cups, their wine glasses. Some of them are still chewing. They cluster around the bed, the mother and child, cooing and congratulating. Envy radiates from them. I can smell it. Faint whispers of acid mingled with their perfume. The commander's wife looks down at the baby as if it's a bouquet of flowers, something she's won, a tribute. The wives are here to bear witness to the naming. It's the wives who do the naming around here. Angela, says the commander's wife. Angela, Angela, the wives repeat, twittering. What a sweet name. Oh, she's perfect. Oh, she's wonderful. We stand between Janine and the bed, so she won't have to see this. Someone gives her a drink of grape juice. I hope there's wine in it. She's still having the pains for the afterbirth. She's crying, helplessly, burnt out, miserable tears. Nevertheless, we are jubilant. It's a victory for all of us. We've done it. She'll be allowed to nurse the baby for a few months. They believe in mother's milk. After that, she'll be transferred to see if she can do it again, with someone else who needs a turn. But she'll never be sent to the colonies. She'll never be declared unwoman. That is her reward. The birthmobile is waiting outside to deliver us back to our own households. The doctors are still in their van. Their faces appear at the window, white blobs like the faces of sick children confined to the house. One of them opens the door and comes towards us. "Was it all right?" he asks, anxious. "Yes," I say, but now I'm wrung out, exhausted. My breasts are painful. They're leaking a little. Fake milk. It happens this way with some of us. We sit on our benches, facing one another as we are transported. We're without emotion now, almost without feeling. We might be bundles of red cloth. We ache. Each of us holds in her lap a phantom, a ghost baby. What confronts us now, now the excitement's over, is our own failure. Mother, I think, whatever you may be, can you hear me? You wanted a women's culture. Well, now there is one. It isn't what you meant, but it exists. Be thankful for small mercies. Well, supposedly, when professional ebook readers, audiobook readers, read these things, at least according to one of them, the thing to do is you read the book, you then read it again while taking notes. So little things like where to put the stress. I suppose for me it'd be when questions start and things like that. Things that are going to make you see what's going, and then you do that final reading. Potentially, if you were told you were going to do it at some point, you'd read it. You read it. You did that, and then you have to wait months. Maybe you have to read it again. But either way, the point is, you know the book well. You know how it's structured, how it works, the bits that are going to trip you up before you go into it, and that way you can just straight read it. And obviously, you get paid well for that, so that happens. The other way around it is you get the original author to write it, assuming that they don't have a terrible voice, or maybe even if they do, assuming that they're somebody famous or whatever. And the benefit with that is because if they have read it, then they don't need to do that because they already know how the story is going to go. They already know what the sentence structure is going to be like because it is the way that they would speak, or they have inhabited that voice at some point in their life. The point is I haven't done that, and that's why a lot of this is going wrong. But I see people doing. Well, I hear voiceover on things, sometimes on YouTube videos and things like that, so it's excusable. Something like I was hearing it on radio adverts today. I got a new car, so I've got a DAB radio, which means I now get radio adverts, which is useful for me because that's the kind of thing I need to know about is how radio adverts work, assuming that I want to be a voiceover artist, which I do. Anyway, and you just hear the worst readings as if people have just gone in and cold read it and thought this will be fine. Nobody wants useful prosody and intonation. They just want it to sound terrible and robotic. But there we go. How long is this? So I'm on 135, and altogether it is 320. So that'll be 160 altogether. Is that right? Yes, of course it is. Yes, 160 is where my halfway mark is. I'm not there yet. Chapter 22. By the time the birthmobile arrives, I'm now imagining a superhero called Birthman. There's nothing good that could come from that. Unless he hides in train compartments or cruise ships. By the time the birthmobile arrives in front of the house, it's late afternoon. The sun is coming weakly through the clouds. The smell of wet grass warming up is in the air. I've done it. I've been at the birth all day. You lose track of time. Cora will have done the shopping today. I'm excused from all duties. I go up the stairs, lifting my feet heavily from one step to the next, holding onto the banister. I feel as if I've been awake for several days and running hard. My chest hurts. My muscles cramp as if they're out of sugar. For once, I welcome solitude. I lie on the bed. I would like to rest, go to sleep, but I'm too tired. At the same time, too excited. My eyes won't close. I look up at the ceiling, tracing the foliage of the wreath. Today it makes me think of a hat, the large brimmed hats women used to wear at some period during the old days. Hats like enormous halos, festooned with fruit and flowers, and the feathers of exotic birds. Hats like an idea of paradise, floating just above the head, a thought solidified. In a minute, the wreath will start to colour, and I will begin seeing things. That's how tired I am, as when you'd driven all night into the dawn for some reason. I won't think about that now, keeping each other awake with stories and taking turns at the wheel, and as the sun would begin to come up, you'd see things at the side of your eyes, purple animals, in the bushes beside the road, the vague outlines of men, which would disappear when you looked at them straight. I'm too tired to go on with this story. I'm too tired to think about where I am. Here is a different story, a better one. This is the story of what happened to Moira. Part of it I can fill in myself. Part of it I heard from Alma, who heard it from Dolores, who heard it from Janine. Janine heard about it from Aunt Lydia. Janine heard it from Aunt Lydia. There can be alliances even in such places, even under such circumstances. There's something you can depend upon. There will always be alliances of one kind or another. Aunt Lydia called Janine into her office. Blessed be the fruit, Janine, Aunt Lydia would have said, without looking up from her desk, where she was writing something. For every rule there was always an exception. This too can be depended upon. The aunts are allowed to read and write. May the Lord open, Janine would have replied, tonelessly, in her transparent voice, her voice of raw egg white. I feel I can rely on you, Janine, Aunt Lydia would have said, raising her eyes from the page at last and fixing Janine with that look of hers through the spectacles, a look that managed to be both menacing and beseeching all at once. Help me, that look said. We are all in this together. You are a reliable girl, she went on, not like some of the others. She thought all Janine's snivelling and repentance meant something. She thought Janine had been broken. She thought Janine was a true believer. But by that time, Janine was like a puppy that had been kicked too often, by too many people at random. She'd roll over for anyone. She'd tell anything just for a moment of approbation. So Janine would have said, I hope so. Aunt Lydia, I hope I have become worthy of your trust, or some such thing. Janine, said Aunt Lydia, something terrible has happened. Janine looked down at the floor. Whatever it was, she knew she would not be blamed for it. She was blameless. But what use had that been to her in the past to be blameless? So at the same time, she felt guilty, and as if she was about to be punished. Do you know about it, Janine? Said Aunt Lydia softly. No, Aunt Lydia, said Janine. She knew at this moment it was necessary to look up, to look Aunt Lydia straight in the eyes. After a moment, she managed it. Because if you do, I will be very disappointed in you, said Aunt Lydia. As the Lord is my witness, said Janine with a show of fervour. Aunt Lydia allowed herself one of her pauses. She fiddled with her pen. Moira is no longer with us, she said at last. Oh, said Janine. She was neutral about this. Moira wasn't a friend of hers. Is she dead? She asked after a moment. Then Aunt Lydia told her the story. Moira had raised her hand to go to the washroom during exercises. She had gone. Aunt Elizabeth was on washroom duty. Aunt Elizabeth stayed outside the washroom door, as usual. Moira went in. After a moment, Moira called to Aunt Elizabeth. The toilet was overflowing. Could Aunt Elizabeth come and fix it? It was true that the toilet sometimes overflowed. Unknown persons stuffed wads of toilet paper down them to make them do this very thing. The aunts had been working on some foolproof way of preventing this, but funds were short, and right now they had to make do with what was at hand, and they hadn't figured out a way of locking up the toilet paper. Possibly they should keep it outside the doors on a table and hand each person a sheet or several sheets as she went in. But that was for the future. It takes a while to get the wrinkles out of anything new. Aunt Elizabeth, suspecting no harm, went into the washroom. Aunt Lydia had to admit it was a little foolish of her. On the other hand, she'd gone in to fix toilets on several previous occasions without mishap. Moira was not lying. Water was running over the floor. Water was running over the floor, and several pieces of disintegrating fecal matter. It was not pleasant, and Aunt Elizabeth was annoyed. Moira stood politely aside, and Aunt Elizabeth hurried into the cubicle Moira had indicated and bent over the back of the toilet. She intended to lift off the porcelain lid and fiddle with the arrangements of bulb and plug inside. She had both hands on the lid when she felt something hard and sharp, and possibly metallic, jab into her ribs from behind. "Don't move," said Moira, "or I'll stick it all the way in. I know where. I'll puncture your lung." They found out afterwards that she'd dismantled the inside of one of the toilets and taken out the long, thin, pointed lever, the part that attaches to the handle at one end, and the chain at the other. It isn't too hard if you do know. It isn't too hard to do if you know how. And Moira had mechanical ability. She used to fix her own car. There were minor things. So after this, the toilets were fitted with chains to hold the tops on, and when they overflowed, it took a long time to get them open. We had several floods that way. Aunt Elizabeth couldn't see what was poking into her back. Aunt Lydia said she was a brave woman. "Oh yes," said Janine. "But not foolhardy," said Aunt Lydia, frowning a little. Janine had been over-enthusiastic, which sometimes has the force of a denial. She did as Moira said. Aunt Lydia continued. Moira got hold of her cattle prod and her whistle, ordering Aunt Elizabeth to unclip them from her belt. Then she hurried Aunt Elizabeth down the stairs to the basement. They're on the second floor, not the third, so there are only 2 flights of stairs to be negotiated. Classes were in session, so there was nobody in the halls. They did see another aunt, but she was at the far end of the corridor and not looking their way. Aunt Elizabeth could have screamed at this point, but she knew Moira meant what she said. Moira had a bad reputation. "Oh yes," said Janine. Moira took Aunt Elizabeth along the corridor of empty lockers, past the door to the gymnasium, and into the furnace room. She told Aunt Elizabeth to take off all her clothes. "Oh," said Janine weakly, as if to protest this sacrilege. And Moira took off her own clothes and put on those of Aunt Elizabeth, who did not fit her exactly, but well enough. She was not overly cruel to Aunt Elizabeth. She allowed her to put on her own red dress, the veil she tore into strips, and tied Aunt Elizabeth up with them. In behind the furnace, she stuffed some of the cloth in her mouth and tied it in place with another strip. She tied a strip around Aunt Elizabeth's neck and tied the other end to her feet behind. "She is a cunning and dangerous woman," said Aunt Lydia. Janine said, "May I sit down?" as if it had been all too much for her. She had something to trade for at last, for a token at least. "Yes, Janine," said Aunt Lydia, surprised but knowing she could not refuse at this point. She was asking for Janine's attention, her cooperation. She indicated the chair in the corner. Janine drew it forward. "I could kill you, you know," said Moira. "I could kill you, you know." "Oh no, I could kill you, you know," said Moira, when Aunt Elizabeth was safely stowed out of sight behind the furnace. "I could injure you badly so you would never feel good in your body again. I could sap you with this, or stick this into your eye. I just remember I didn't, if it ever comes to that." Aunt Lydia didn't repeat any of this part to Janine, but I expect Moira said something like it. In any case, she didn't kill or mutilate Aunt Elizabeth, who a few days later, after she'd recovered from her 7 hours behind the furnace and presumably from the interrogation for the possibility of collusion, would not have been ruled out by the aunt or by anyone else, was back in operation at the centre. Moira stood up straight and looked firmly ahead. She drew her shoulders back, pulled up her spine, and uncompressed her lips. This was not our usual posture. Usually, we walked with heads bent down, our eyes on our hands on the ground. Moira didn't look much like Aunt Elizabeth, even with the brown wimple in place, but her stiff back posture was appropriately enough to convince the angels on guard, who never looked at any of us very closely, even and perhaps especially the aunts, because Moira marched straight out at the front door with the lutted present Aunt Elizabeth pass, which they didn't bother to check because who would affront an aunt in that way, and disappeared. "Oh," said Janine. "Who can tell what she felt? Maybe she wanted to cheer. If so, she kept it well." "Oh," said Janine. "Who can tell what she felt? Maybe she wanted to cheer. If so, she kept it well hidden." So Janine said, Aunt Lydia, "Here's what I want you to do." Janine opened her eyes and tried to look innocent and attentive. "I want you to keep your ears open. Maybe one of the others was involved. Yes, Aunt Lydia, said Janine. And come and tell me about it, won't you, dear? Have you heard anything? Yes, Aunt Lydia, said Janine. She knew she would not have to kneel down any more at the front of the classroom and listen to all of us shouting at her that it was her fault. Now it'd be someone else for a while. She was temporarily off the hook. The fact that she told Dolores about this encounter in Aunt Lydia's office meant nothing. It didn't mean that she. It didn't mean she would. She wouldn't. It didn't mean she wouldn't testify against us, any of us, if she had the occasion. We knew that. By the time we were treating her the way people used to treat those with PTSD. What? I'm now getting to that weird part of Tide where I just start straight making up words. By this time, we were treating her the way people used to treat those with no legs who sold pencils on street corners. We avoided her when we could, were charitable to her when it couldn't be helped. She was a danger to us, we knew that. Dolores probably patted her on the back and said she was a good sport to tell us. Where did this exchange take place? In the gymnasium, where we were getting ready for bed. Where did this exchange take place? In the gymnasium, where we were getting ready for bed. Dolores had the bed next to Janine's. The story passed among us that night, in the semi-darkness, under our breath, from bed to bed. Moira was out there somewhere. She was at large or dead. What would she do? The thought of what she would do expanded till it filled the room. At any moment there might be a shattering explosion. The glass of the windows would fall inwards. The doors would swing open. Moira had power now. She'd been set loose. She'd set herself loose. She was now a loose woman. I think we found this frightening. Moira was like an elevator with open sides. She made us dizzy. Already we were losing the taste for freedom. Already we were finding these walls secure. In the upper reaches of the atmosphere, you'd come apart. You'd vaporize. There would be no pressure holding you together. Nevertheless, Moira was our fantasy. We hugged her to us. She was with us in secret. A giggle. There was lava beneath the crust of daily life in the light of Moira. The aunts were less fearsome and more absurd. Their power had a flaw to it. They could be shanghaied in toilets. The audacity was what we liked. We expected her to be dragged in any minute, as she had been before. We could not imagine what they might do to her this time. It would be very bad, whatever it was. But nothing happened. Moira didn't reappear. She hasn't yet. Oh, mate. How we doing? Okay. 17 minutes left. Right. No. Carry on. Regardless. Chapter 23. This is a reconstruction. All of it is a reconstruction. It's a reconstruction now, in my head, as I lie flat on my single bed, rehearsing what I should or shouldn't have said, what I should or shouldn't have done, how I should have played it, if I ever get out of here. Let's stop there. I intend to get out of here. I can't last forever. Others have thought such things in bad times before this, and they were always right. They did get out one way or another, and it didn't last forever, although for them it may have lasted all the forever they had. When I get out of here, if I'm ever able to set this down in any form, even in the form of one voice to another, it will be a reconstruction then too, and yet another remove. It's impossible to say a thing exactly the way it was because what you say can never be exact. You always have to leave something out. There are too many parts, sides, cross-currents, nuances, too many gestures which would mean this or that, too many shapes which can never be fully described, too many flavours in the air or in the tongue, half-colours, too many. But if you happen to be a man sometime in the future, and you've made it this far, please remember you will never be subjected to the temptation of feeling you must forgive a man as a woman. It's difficult to resist. believe me. But remember that forgiveness too is a power. To beg for it is a power, and to withhold or bestow it is a power, perhaps the greatest. Maybe none of this is about control. Maybe it isn't really about who can own whom, who can do what to whom and get away with it, even as far as death. Maybe it isn't about who can sit and who has to kneel or stand or lie down, legs spread open. Maybe it's about who can do what to whom and be forgiven for it. Never tell me it amounts to the same thing. I want you to kiss me, said the commander. Well, of course, something came up before that. Such requests never came flying out of the blue. I went to sleep after all, and dreamed I was wearing earrings, and one of them was broken. Nothing beyond that. Just the brain going through its back files. And I was wakened by Cora with the dinner tray, and time was back on track. It's a good baby, says Cora, as she's setting down the tray. She must know already. They have a kind of word-of-mouth telegraph from household to household. News gets around, but it gives me her pleasure to hear about it, as if my words will make it more real. It's fine, I say. A keeper, a girl. Cora smiles at me, a smile that includes, these are the moments that must make what she is doing seem worthwhile to her. That's good, she says. Her voice is almost wistful, and I think, of course, she would have liked to have been there. It's like a party she couldn't go to. Maybe we have one soon, she says slyly. By we, she means me. It's up to me to repay the team, justify my food and keep, like a queen ant with eggs. Rita may disapprove of me, but Cora does not. Instead, she depends on me. She hopes, and I am the vehicle for her hope. The hope is of the simplest kind. She wants a birthday here. With guests and food and presents. She wants a little child to spoil in the kitchen, to iron clothes for, to slip cookies into when no one's watching. I am to provide these joys for her. I would rather have the disapproval. I feel more worthy of it. The dinner is beef stew. I have some trouble finishing it, because halfway through it I remember what the day has erased right out of my head. It's true what they say, it's a trance state, giving birth or being there. You lose track of the rest of your life. Yeah. Your focus only that one instant, but now it comes back to me, and I know I'm not prepared. The clock in the hall downstairs strikes 9. I press my handle against the sides of the thighs, breathe in, set out along the hall and softly down the stairs. Serena Joy may still be at the house where the birth took place. That's lucky. We couldn't have foreseen it. On these days, the wives hang around for hours, helping to open the presents, gossiping, getting drunk. Something had to be done to dispel their envy. I follow the downstairs corridor back past the door that leads into the kitchen, along to the next door. His. I stand outside, it feeling like a child who's been summoned at school to the principal's office. What have I done? My practice here is illegal. What have I done wrong? My practice here is illegal. It's forbidden for us to be alone without the commanders. We are for breeding purposes. We aren't concubines, geisha girls, courtesans. On the contrary, everything possible has been done to remove us from that category. There's supposed nothing entertainment about us. No room is to be permitted for the flowering of secret lusts. No special flavours are to be wheedled by them or us. There are to be no toe-holds for love. We are two-legged wombs, that's all. Sacred vessels, ambulatory chalices. If I'm caught, it's to Serena's tender mercies I'll be delivered. She isn't supposed to meddle in such household discipline. That's a woman's business. After that reclassification, it could become an unwoman. But to refuse to see him because he couldn't... But to refuse to see him could be worse. There's no doubt about who holds the real power. But there must be something we want from what he wants. From me, to want is to have a weakness. It's their weakness, whoever it is. That entices me. It's like a small crack in a wall before now impenetrable. If I press my clear eye to it, the weakness of his, I may be able to see my way clear. I want to know what he wants. Raise my hand, knock on the door of this forbidden room where I have never been, where women do not go. Not even Serena Joy comes here, and the cleaning is done by Grimaldus. And the cleaning is done by guardians. What the fuck is Grimaldus? Did I even say that? What secrets, what male totems are kept in here? I'm told to enter. I open the door. Step in. Oh, I need a new chapter to come up. Okay, we're going on to a new part. I'm just going to finish this and stop because I'm speaking gibberish. Oh! Oh. I must be straight dreaming. Mm. The clock in the hall downstairs strikes 9. I press my hands against the sides of my thighs, breathe in, set out along the hall and softly down the stairs. Serena Joy may still be at the house where the birth took place. That's lucky. He couldn't have foreseen it. On these days the wives hang around for hours, helping to open the presents, gossiping, getting drunk. Something has to be done to dispel their envy. I follow the downstairs corridor back, past the door that leads into the kitchen, along to the next door, his. I stand outside it, feeling like a child who's been summoned, at school, to the principal's office. What have I done wrong? My presence here is illegal. It's forbidden for us to be alone with the commanders. We are for breeding purposes. We aren't concubines, geisha girls, courtesans. On the contrary, everything... Did I not read this already? Either I've already read this and I'm more tired than I thought, which is quite tired, or we're getting some... There's a Greek word for this, for when you repeat something, and you do something again. I feel like it's going to be an Anna something, but it might be one of those weird ones that starts with an H. You know, like a hamartia or something, but obviously not a hamartia because that's got nothing to do with this. That's an element of a story, not a pattern, not a storytelling technique. Yeah. You know, like an anaphora or something, but probably not that because that's the first one I thought of, and that's almost certainly wrong. Anyway. On the contrary, everything possible has been done to remove us from that category. There's supposed to be nothing entertaining about us. No room is to be permitted for the flowering of secret lusts. No special favours are to be wheedled by them or us. There are to be no toeholds for love. We are two-legged wombs, that's all. Sacred vessels, ambulatory chalices. So why does he want to see me, at night, alone? If I'm caught, it's to Serena's tender mercies I'll be delivered. He isn't supposed to meddle in such household discipline. That's women's business. After that, reclassification. I could become an unwoman. But to refuse to see him, that could be worse. There's no doubt about who holds the real power. But there must be something he wants, from me. To want is to have a weakness. It's this weakness, whatever it is, that entices me. It's like a small crack in a wall, before now impenetrable. If I press my eye to it, this weakness of his, I may be able to see my way clear. I want to know what he wants. I raise my hand, knock on the door of the forbidden room where I have never been, where women do not go. Not even Serena Joy comes here, and the cleaning is done by guardians. What secrets, what male totems are kept in here? I'm told to enter. I open the door. Step in. Okay, so I remember that the secrets, the whole done by guardians bit, but I remember it in a different part. Maybe. Weird. What is on the other side is normal life. I should say, what is on the other side looks like normal life. There's a desk, of course, with a CompuTalk on it, and a black leather chair behind it. There's a potted plant on the desk, a pen holder set, papers. There's an oriental rug on the floor and a fireplace without a fire in it. There's a small sofa covered in brown plush, a television set, an end table, a couple of chairs. But all around the walls there are bookcases. They're filled with books. Books and books and books, right out in plain view. No locks, no boxes. No wonder we can't come in here. It's an oasis of the forbidden. I try not to stare. The commander is standing in front of the fireless fireplace, back to it, one elbow on the carved wooden ornamental, other hand in his pocket. It's such a studied pose, something of the country squire, some old come-on from a glossy men's mag. He probably decided ahead of time that he'd be standing like this when I came in. He'd be standing like that when I came in. When I knocked, he probably rushed over to the fireplace and propped himself up. He should have a black patch over one eye, a cravat with horseshoes on it. It's all very well for me to think these things. Quicker staccato, a jittering of the brain, an inner jeering, but it's panic. The fact is, I'm terrified. I don't say anything. Close the door behind you, he says, pleasantly enough. I do it and turn back. Hello, he says. It's the old form of greeting. I haven't heard it for a long time, for years. Under the circumstances, it seems out of place, comical even, a flip backward in time, a stunt. I can think of nothing appropriate to say in return. I think I will cry. He must have noticed this because he looks at me, puzzled, gives a little frown I choose to interpret as concern, gives a little frown I choose to interpret as concern, though it may merely be irritation. Here, he says, you can sit down. He pulls a chair out for me, sets it in front of his desk. Then he goes around behind the desk and sits down, slowly, and it seems to me, elaborately. What this act tells me is that he hasn't brought me here to touch me in any way, against my will. He smiles. A smile is not sinister or predatory. It's merely a smile, a formal kind of smile, friendly but a little distant, as if I'm a kitten in a window, one he's looking at but doesn't intend to buy. I sit up straight on the chair, my hands folded on my lap. I feel as if my feet in their flat red shoes aren't quite touching the floor, but of course they are. You must find this strange, he says. I simply look at him. The understatement of the year was a phrase my mother uses. Used. Okay. The understatement of the year was a phrase my mother uses. Used. I feel like cotton candy, sugar in air. Squeeze me and I turn into a small, sickly, damp wad of weeping pink red. I guess it's a little strange, he says, as if I've answered. I think I should have a hat on. I think I should have a hat on, tied with a bow, under my chin. I want, he says. I try to lean forward. Yes? Yes, yes. What then? What does he want? But I won't give it away. The eagerness of mine. This eagerness of mine. It's a bargaining session. Things are about to be exchanged. She who does not hesitate is lost. I'm not giving anything away. Selling only. I would like, he says. This will sound silly. And he does look embarrassed. Sheepish was the word. The way men used to look once. He's old enough to remember how to look that way. And to remember also how appealing women once found it. The young ones don't know those tricks. They've never had to use them. I'd like you to play a game of Scrabble with me, he says. I hold myself absolutely rigid. I keep my face unmoving. So that's what's in the forbidden room. Scrabble. I want to laugh, shriek with laughter, fall off my chair. This was once the game of old women, old men, in the summers or in retirement villas, to be played when there was nothing good on television, or of adolescence, once, long, long ago. My mother had a set, kept at the back of the hall cupboard, with the Christmas tree decorations and cardboard boxes. Once she tried to interest me in it, when I was 13 and miserable and at loose ends. Now, of course, it's something different. Now it's forbidden for us. Now it's dangerous. Now it's indecent. Now it's something he can't do with his wife. Now it's desirable. Now he's compromised himself. It's as if he's offered me drugs. All right, I say, as if indifferent. I can in fact hardly speak. He doesn't say why he wants to play Scrabble with me. I didn't ask him. He merely takes a box out from one of the drawers in his desk and opens it up. There are the plasticized wooden counters, I remember, the board divided into squares, the little holders for setting the letters in. He dumps the counters out on the top of his desk and begins to turn them over. After a moment, I join in. You know how to play? He says. I nod. We play 2 games. Larynx, I spell. Valence. Quince. Zygote. I hold the glossy counters with their smooth edges, finger the letters. The feeling is voluptuous. This is freedom. An eye blink of it. Limp, I spell. gorge. What a luxury. The counters are like candies made of peppermint, cool like that. Humbugs, those were called. I would like to put them into my mouth. They would taste also of lime. The letter C, crisp, slightly acidic on the tongue, delicious. I win the first game. I let him win the second. I still haven't discovered what the terms are, what I will be able to ask for in exchange. Finally, he tells me it's time for me to go home. Those are the words he uses. Go home. He means to my room. He asks me if I will be all right, as if the stairway is a dark street. I say yes. We open his study door, just a crack, and listen for noises in the hall. This is like being on a date. This is like sneaking into the dorm after hours. This is conspiracy. Thank you, he says, for the game. Then he says, I want you to kiss me. I think about how I could take the back. Did I manage to sleep through reading like an entire chapter? I mean, I'm never going to watch this back, but if anyone does watch it, do let me know. Hey, actually managed to time this right. But now I'm interested. I might be able to keep reading. I think about how I could take back the. I think about how I could take the back of the toilet apart, the toilet in my own room, on a bath night, quickly and quietly, so Cora outside of the chair would not hear me. I could get the sharp lever out and hide it in my sleeve and smuggle it into the commander's study the next time. Because after a request like that, there's always a next time, whether you say yes or no. I don't know what she's smuggling. Okay. I think about how I could approach the commander to kiss him, here alone, and take off his jacket, as if to allow or invite something further. So I approached a true love, and put my arms around him, and slip the lever out from the sleeve, and drive the sharp end into him suddenly, between his ribs. Oh, right, that. Okay, I've got you. I think about the blood coming out of him, hot as soup, sexual, over my hands. In fact, I don't think about anything of the kind. I put it in only afterwards. Maybe I should have thought about that at the time, but I didn't. As I said, this is a reconstruction. All right, I say. I go to him and place my lips closed against his. I smell the shaving lotion, the usual kind, the hint of mothballs, familiar enough to me. But he's like someone I've only just met. He draws away, looks down at me. There's the smile again, the sheepish one. Such candour. Not like that, he says, as if you meant it. He was so sad. That is a reconstruction too. Right, there we go. Next time we have part 9, Night. What are the parts called? We've had Night already, I'm sure. Do they repeat? Yes. Yes, they repeat a lot. There's a fuckload of nights. There are many nights. Night, shopping, night, waiting room, nap, household, night, birthday, night, soul scrolls, night, Jezebel's, night, salvaging, night. Right. Oh, okay, wait. I think I get this. Because are the night ones the ones that always have only... Oh, a nap. Night. Ooh, I get how the chapters work now. I still don't get how the speech marks work, but I get how the chapters work now. So every other chapter is a dream, is when she's asleep, is a memory of, and that's why it's only, so every other part, and that's why it's only one chapter, because it's just the one memory, the one dream, maybe something like that. I think that's what's happening here. I'm paying attention. Right, so next time. Possibly tomorrow. See how it goes. Oh, thank you for not watching.